Everyone, welcome to another lesson. In this lesson, we are going to be looking at the use strict directive in JavaScript, especially when it comes to talking about scoping in JavaScript. Remember that we've talked about hoisting in the last lesson, which showed us how operations are performed in JavaScript, especially when it comes to code execution, how JavaScript read code and interpret it when it comes to execution. So we were able to see how hoisting works, especially when it comes to variable declaration with different variable keywords and functions. And so in this lesson, we take a look at the use strict directive, how use strict works in JavaScript, especially when it is turned on in your code or when it's turned on in any part of your code block. So we want to take a look at how it works in JavaScript. The purpose of use strict is to indicate that the code should be executed in strict mode. Now notice that for the larger part of our series, it has been the normal JavaScript code where we have not been using this use strict directive, and we just try and play around with code and get output in our browser, which denotes how the normal JavaScript mode works. But the use directive, if employed in JavaScript, works differently from the normal way we have been saying, in the sense that this allows bugs to be cached early. It allows some syntax that will normally escape a normal mode to not escape in the use strict mode, and it allows your code to be more reliable and accurate. And that is the purpose of the use strict directive. With strict mode, you cannot, for example, use undeclared variable. Notice that in the normal JavaScript mode that we have been using in the past videos, easily you can just, set an expression without having declared a variable and it still not give an error in your code. But all these kind of practices, if you try to do it in strict mode, it will result in error, which will not allow you to be able to proceed without actually doing the right thing. And this way, it makes your code becomes more reliable, for the fact that a lot of errors or a lot of bugs that can produce inconsistency in your output will have been well taken care of in your code using the use strict directive. So how do you now use the use strict directive in JavaScript? So I want to pull up my code editor and then let's take a look at this. Now, if you want to use the use strict directive in JavaScript, you only need to initialize it by using this double quote and putting use strict inside this way. And then this way, JavaScript understand that you have entered into use strict mode. What is just here in my code is just the normal HTML and CSS in order to make the interface of the output very okay for us to see. Is the reason why I just changed the look. So it's nothing special. It's not JavaScript. It's just pure HTML and then some CSS for styling, as you can see. So now, once you put on this mode, once you added it, for example, if you add it to the beginning of your script, for example, let's say every script that want to have inside this script tag is going to be JavaScript. Once you add it at the beginning, it will apply to all the code that you will write after it, which means that it will have a global scope. But if, for example, maybe you only initialize it inside the code block, maybe just a function scope or something else, it will only be applicable inside that function scope. And we are going to be taking a look at an example. So let's take a look at the first example that we'll see. Now, if you do something like this in an expression, if you have an expression and do something like this, 31.4. Now, let's try and see if we can get out this in our output. You can see that nothing is showing in the browser tab. So let me inspect what could be the problem. Okay, there's an error, unexpected closing. Where is this coming from? Code syntax. The script tag is fine actually, but one way or the other, this is saying that I'm missing something. Oh, sorry, I needed to refresh. Okay, so you can see X is not divine. Meanwhile, in the normal JavaScript, if you take this out and do something like this, let X Now, you can see you cannot access X before initialization. But if I move this up this way, if I move this up in my code, now this way I should be getting a response. But if I try to do similar thing in useScript, now this also works because I am not initializing this expression before I declare the variable. But if I change it around, you will see that it will disappear. The output will stop showing. And if I take it up and just declare an expression, it will not work because accessing an expression without declaring a variable is not going to, it doesn't work in use strict in JavaScript. So let's take a look at another example. So I'm going to use functions for the second example. So let's say outside here, I call my function even before I declare it. Don't forget that this is allowed when you have a function. And then I make a simple function and call it my function. And inside it, I do y equals to 3.14, for instance. Now, if I come outside and try to, access y, it will not give me any output. And the reason is because strict mode does not allow assigning value to a variable that has not been declared, which is what we just did here. We assign a value to a variable that has not been declared because this y equals to 3.14 is just an expression. It's not yet a variable because it doesn't have either var or const or, in the normal way of declaring variable. So it will throw an error. And if you try to inspect it, you are definitely going to see an error in our console, and you can see reference error. Y is not defined. And also another reason is because of the fact that do not forget that variable inside functions are only accessible inside function. Accessing them from outside will cause an error if you remember when we start talking about scope. But if I want to make this work now, if I declare this the normal way and I do this and I declare it this way and then move this inside this function, then I should get my output, which is the right, which means that I will only be able to access this y when I am accessing it inside the function scope, which is this opening curly brace and outside and closing curly brace. So moving this outside will give me an error that y is not defined because of the fact that it is a functional scope and it's not accessible outside. So this is how you use strict mode in order to solve a lot of problems when it comes to JavaScript. And the last but the least example in this particular video is going to be function, and I'm going to make another expression with value 3.14 this way. X equals to, so I don't mind my editor, X equals to 3.14, and then below it I will just call my function like the other time and then make that function my function this way, and then inside it, because I want use strict only inside my function and not as a globally and not globally, so I can just use it inside this place and then make my variable and say 3.14. And then if I come outside and try to access this y, you definitely see that it will not give me any response. So if I do this y, now you can see that I am not getting any output on my screen. And if I inspect, you see that y is like definitely, sorry, I need to quickly refresh this. Index HTML36. Okay, sorry, I have removed something. The closing script tag is no longer there. So if I put it back now, I think the error should have gone. Y is not defined. So you can see that reference error. And so this is how use strict mode helps you to make your code more reliable and prevent accidental bugs and mistakes in variable usage. Thank you. I'll see you in the next lesson.